How's it going today, guys? I'm doing a little different video than I normally do, and we're going to work on a bike. More importantly, we're going to replace the tires and tubes on this bike. I'm going to show you how. You're going to need a couple simple tools. Some wrenches to get the wheels off, some screwdrivers to get the tires off. You'll need an air pump or some sort of air source, whether it be an air compressor, tire gauge, of course, to check the pressure, tubes and or tires, depending on what you're fixing. So, first step first, get the bike upside down so you can actually work on it. So you're going to go ahead and loosen the wheel to get it off. I've already done that, and I will need 2 hands for this. Now I should really look into a new chain. However, this one has not been oiled in a very long time. I'll oil it when I put the tire back on and get ready to ride it. So, step 2, since these tires are pretty bad, what we're going to work on is getting the tire off. Now, if you are just needing to fix the tubes, then I will show you where that stopping point where you can fix the tubes. But I'm going to go ahead and take the whole tire and tube off to replace. So basically, you just want to take your screwdriver and be careful not to bend the rim. You're just going to kind of work it around. You just want to pry up the tire and be gentle. Now, let me do this where I can get to it here. You may need a couple more screwdrivers. You want to hold the first one you stick in. So make sure that's the one you aren't inclined to liking to use to pry the tire and tube off, or the tire off, I should say. Some people start at the stem, valve stem. I don't care on this setup because I am just getting everything off. You also don't want to get too aggressive and rip the tube. You're just trying to fix the tube. You don't want to put more holes in it than you need to. Okay. Another thing I should have said beforehand is before you get into it, make sure you know what size tire and tube you need. Do that, or I mean, I guess you could take it off, but then you'll have stuff just sitting around. So there's that. Now, once you get the tire off one side, this would be the time where if you needed to take the tube out, where's the valve stem? Take the tube out. Of course, part of my problem on why the tires wouldn't air up is because the valve stem's broken. But you'd want to pull that out first, and then at this point you could cautiously work this out. I'm not worried about it. I am going to go ahead and pull it out and not worry about patching it, but I'm going to go ahead and pull the rest of the tire out. You also want to be careful. There's a thing called a rim liner. That is this strip in here. I'm not sure if I can get that showing you. That is a plastic strip that protects the inner tube from the spokes. Just like that, the tire is off. So what I'm going to want to do, this may seem counterintuitive. People might think, well, why don't you put the tube on first? Well, it's a little bit easier to put the tire on than fish the tube in. So we will, I don't think these are directional. Sometimes tires are directional, so you want to make sure and look. See, I don't think this is going to matter on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pull this around. This tire almost just slides right on. A little bit of a, you don't want to try to rip it on, just be gentle. also don't want to rip up your rim. Once you got it on to that point where this is where you fix the inner tube, you can go ahead and put your inner tube in. Now, you're going to want to put a little bit of air into this. It'll make your life a lot easier. I don't know if I should got these slime tubes. I live on dirt roads and I ride these bikes on dirt roads with street tires, much like my motorcycles, and I didn't want to have to be fixing flats all the time. And these feel really weird. But you're going to want to put just a little bit of air into here, so that way it keeps it from kind of kinking up on itself when you put it in. Because if you put it in and it gets kinks, I may have put too much on. You put it in and it gets a little kink, then you're going to be fighting, trying to figure out why it won't air up, or why does it feel like it's flat but it looks like it's aired up. And second, it may pop on you after you put too much air into it. So first things first, put the valve stem in first, and then slowly try to work the tube in there. Make sure I could see what I'm doing on camera. Slowly try to work the tube in there without getting it kinked. You just want to kind of just push it in slightly, just ever so slightly. Being gentle with it. You might have to kind of work the tire up and down a little bit. Just that little bit of air helps it from getting it all bound up. And once it's in, you're going to want to just go back around. Start here. Almost you do it by hand here. I think I'll get it most of the way by hand. A little bit of soap may help in this situation. But I don't think it's needed. We'll get to a point where it's a little snug, so screwdrivers will come in handy. Again, be careful not to poke your inner tube. You just want to barely grab the edge of that rim. And you don't want to pinch your inner tube. So there's a little bit of a trick to it. Just being careful. Not taking too big of a bite. And just like that, you now have, make sure that valve stem stays up straight. If the valve stem's crooked, that means the tube is slipped, and you don't want that because it's going to wear. Got mosquitoes out here today. Put a little air into it. I'm going to check it, see where it's at. It's telling me it's just barely got over 15, so that's not enough. But you'll just want to air it up to your normal, the recommended pressure. Don't go over, because you don't want to blow out a tube and have to redo it all. Is a little high, but I'll live with it. So I think the maximum, it says on here, it says recommended inflation pressure 90 psi. The last and final tip I have for you is when you put the rear wheel in and the front, more so the rear, is just put it against something kind of straight and then just watch it. See if it moves back and forth. Ideally, you want it as straight as possible and moving as straight, I should say, as in straight of line as possible. This one's pretty close, but I need to work on the chain some more because it's a little rough. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll see you on the road with your project. Stay tuned for more.